to the Jira Life, the place to find news, events, and interviews with the Atlassian community's movers and shakers. Because we didn't choose the Jira Life chose us. Thank you to Revise for backing us up and making the Jira Life possible.
Welcome, Paulo.
Hey.
Hi.
I was planning on introducing you as the champion with the world's greatest mustache.
I think that's accurate.
I'm trying.
We could definitely bestow that honor. We can make any kind of awards or honors we want to. And so the Jira Life Best Mustache Award is hereby presented to Paulo.
But if you turn your profile like it is full 3D, right? There you go. Aspirational life goals here on the Jira Life. One day I'll grow it out. So, Paulo, where are you tuning in from? Where in the world are you at?
In Oslo, Norway. It's a little bit cold here these days. But I guess you guys in the States are also experiencing some storms, I hear.
Some people are. I am.
Only some of us.
I live in LA. I live by where Team 26 will be happening, and we don't know what white stuff on the ground means.
That's sand, isn't it, Alex?
It might as well be dirt because we don't have it.
But I can only imagine Norway might be a little more picturesque than some of what we're seeing.
Yep.
Well, it is when it's not too cold to go outside. Well, I'm still Portuguese, so still not completely used to Norway when it comes to temperature, but I'm trying every year.
That's a good point. I have a lot of people I've worked with who are coming from South America and then moving into Canada and experiencing similar things. They're like, the first year it's fun. Then consequent years are still getting used to it all.
Yeah.
And so, Paulo, today we're going to be talking about something that I don't like talking about, and that's acids.
I
love talking about it.
we're going to fight.
Favorite thing in the world of Atlassian. If it didn't exist, I'd be so happy. So your job today is to convince me why it's the greatest thing in the world.
Might be difficult, but I'll try.
I mean, I've seen the talking points. I think he's got a chance.
You have to convince me because I mean, I use it, but I use it against my will.
Okay, here's the thing though, Alex. I will say you have maybe not said directly, but some of the conversations we've had, you like to have some control, right? Some tight controls.
Control.
You like tight control, right? And given what I saw that Paulo was showing, I think this is a way to maybe not necessarily provide the control, but the ability to be aware and at some levels have some deeper control over certain things. So I think his use case has a real chance here of you going,
Oh, absolutely.
maybe I've been wrong this whole time, and assets are the key to everything I've been missing.
I know, right?
Oh no, I just hear team managed spaces and I'm already shaking. No.
You and Alex should get together and have a discussion on team managed projects.
Absolutely. And Anaheim, absolutely.
Well, it's good to know that you're coming to Anaheim. That was going to be another question of mine, but we'll talk about that later. So for the audience here, why don't you kind of cue us up on what we're going to be learning or what you're going to be teaching us here? Because this is actually, I think, more of a first. Usually we have people come onto the Jira Life and there's like a lot of bantering going back and forth, but you're going to enlighten us with something this time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think like it's I work with a lot of customers where governance is a thing and trying, keep things under control. And especially now with AI, you want to make sure, for example, that you don't really have data that is not relevant at all, and it might actually contribute to hallucinating. I have also a lot of customers that you might be familiar with the concept that Confluence at some point becomes a dump for just dropping data there and that's it. Never maintain it and things like that. We're not going to go down, to page level in Confluence, but in space level, there's quite a lot of things that can be done. So, you might have, sometimes you might come across a situation that you have to understand how many spaces in Confluence are outdated. How many spaces in Jira are outdated as well? How many project leads in Jira do not even work at your organization anymore?
Story of my
So
life.
yeah, exactly. So the point is that with having a little bit more control, you'll be able to answer those questions relatively fast. And the
Why do
fact
we have
that
to use assets? Like, why do we have to use like the second worst thing that Atlassian makes?
because you can automate it, you can use it to automate things. For example, send reminders. For example, your project has not been used for over 3 years. Do you want to archive it or delete it? Send an email to them automatically. So there's a lot of things that you can do once you are within the platform, instead of, building your own system or trying to build a Forge app for things. I mean, it is complicated to set this up for the first time, but once you do, you don't touch it anymore. Unless Atlassian changes their APIs, which they do, but yeah, not so often. So it's kind of like, yeah, if you're new to REST APIs, to just fetch all the projects spaces. So it might be a steep learning curve, but once you get it set up, that's it. So the idea is, we can import, we can fetch all the projects from Jira spaces. Sorry, I'm gonna go to projects a lot of times, but yeah, a lot of...
I don't know what Atlassian was thinking there, but
over a decade of just saying the word projects and issues, it's gonna be hard to change,
every training that I've done for the last 3 months, my opening statement is, you're gonna hear me say projects and spaces interchangeably, and issues and word types interchangeably, because as much as I want to, I cannot change my tongue. Like, it won't change.
Absolutely. I find myself...
You're amongst family here, so we'll understand.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I find myself correcting other people, and then immediately 30 seconds later they are correcting me. So it's, yeah. No, but the point is, you can import all the Jira spaces as assets with all the relevant information. For example, the last issue updated, work item updated on that space, who is the lead, who are the administrators, and so on, and you import all those things as assets. The same for Confluence spaces as well. And once you do that, you have all that information in a structured database that you can get at a glance, and I'm going to show you that. You can get it at a glance, but you can also use it to automate, which makes it fantastic. You can even go as far, which we do as well, we can even go as far as use that information to find inactive users as well, and help you save money on licenses.
That's good. I like the sound of that.
I have a quick semantic question, if I might, though, not to take us too far away.
You're not allowed to do that, Sarah. Bob's watching.
I think I can. Bob will have to come on and shut me down. No, just real quick. Part of it's the term assets, right? Like when we were talking just before we started, you were saying, having a database available to me, right? Another sort of database that I can configure the way I want to go along with Jira, and that's assets. Do you think the word assets could be something that throws anybody off in terms of, this is meant to be used for assets? So if you're talking about, I'm going to store my projects in here, I'm going to store these other things in here, those aren't really assets, or they might not be viewed as assets in the same way it's commonly known.
Absolutely. I mean, the moment that this previously was known as Insight, it was a marketplace app that you would install in your Jira instance. So it took me couple of years to stop calling it Insight. I still do with some customers because they are so used to Insight, and so with them I still speak their language. But the word assets, I mean, I don't think it really represents what the product is, and I had trouble convincing customers that this is not ITAM product, IT asset management product. It's more than that. Because, customers that are used to ServiceNow, where the ITAM AM module is one product, the CMDB module is another product. Here, you have what I heard someone, I believe it was from Ethicode, I heard someone calling this a XMDB, and I love the name. It's it's a anything database. So yeah.
Any
I like
words
that
or
too.
any insights onto when and where we're gonna get the breakup of assets into its own thing?
About the when, I'm not entirely sure. Well, it was announced as a community post that they're finally working on it because there was lack of clarity. Since the announcement at Team 2025 Europe, there was lack of clarity. I mean, even at the booth, going and to the assets people and asking questions, a lot of questions were unanswered. But now, finally, after that community post, we got some clarity of what's going to happen. One thing that I like that the assets are gonna be great comment from Josh, but but the thing is that now we have a little bit more clarity. So we know one thing that I'm excited about is that assets are gonna be part of the teamwork graph. So if we're talking about service management, Rove will be able to understand that, okay, you as user have this specific model of laptop attached to you, like that has a relationship to your user. So it will be quite interesting specifically for service management. The fact that it becomes a platform app, there's one thing that I'm interested about is the fact that I don't need service management licenses to have people creating and editing assets. That's gonna be great.
But how expensive do you think assets as a standalone app is going to be then, given that you can only get assets in the most expensive version of JSM?
I believe, I mean, don't quote me on that, but the rumors that I heard is that it's gonna be 1,000 assets per product. It might depend whether you're buying premium or standard, and then you have the possibility of buying more per asset. The prices are significantly cheaper since the first time that Atlassian announced that assets would be consumption-based pricing. So they have reduced the price since then. But you have to you have to plan very well, and you have to buy in packages. So it's like if you want to buy 121 assets, I'm not sure how easy that's gonna be, especially if you are on annual billing. So you might have to buy in like steps or something.
So almost I'm hearing possibility that your governance, using assets for governance, could possibly even help you keep your assets governance in place.
Yeah, maybe, yes.
Pay attention and be aware, like, hey, we're starting to hit limits here. What do we need to do? Or too many people have access to it. What do we do?
But you also have to, of course, you can control who has access to it and who can, create assets and so on. But you also have to think whether the cost is worth the benefit, because sometimes it might be worth it to store 100,000 assets. The value that you get from it, it might be worth the money that you're paying for it. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm looking forward to. I think I was very excited at Team 25 Europe when they said assets extract. I was excited and mad at the same time because I can see the potential of it, and I'm very excited for the future that Atlassian is painting. So that's exciting, but I'm very, very mad that this is just another thing that us as admins are not going to be trained on. And this whole asset setup, and one of the reasons why I hate it, is that it's more of an art as opposed to a science. And beauty is in the eye of the beholder when you're setting up your assets. Like, how you set up your assets is going to determine a lot of successes or failures on how easily like Rovo and everything else can get your stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Every database admin just disagreed with you wholeheartedly.
Why?
Because there is a definite science to database design.
Yes.
How you set things up, how you link things, how you organize.
And how
things.
many Jira administrators in the cloud are database engineers?
Well, I think we've talked about the fact that the role and the skill set of the Jira admins is definitely increasing, right? Some of those areas that you are good to have that experience in terms of how do you get the training? Well, the same way we get training in lots of different areas, right? We have to go out and do the research and do the homework on it. But I would also say just because you have it out there doesn't mean you have to use it. If you are in that
It's a
admin
platform
role,
app
if you
now,
were that,
Sarah.
say again?
It's a platform app now.
That doesn't mean you have to give everybody access to it.
But you're going to want to give everybody access to it to benefit from it.
Are you really going to want to give everyone access?
I think there's a lot of things out there that, we can see potential in, and a lot of things that folks might want out there, but that part of our job is making sure we're ready to support those things. So you're asking the right questions, right? Like, how do I get training and how do I manage this and all of that? And having those things in place before you release it out to the masses is a really good idea. If you find a champion out there who might be a DBA, right? They do all these other things, but they have that DBA knowledge and they can help you with that. I think those objections, frankly, are easily overcome.
I think that Alex was touching a point that was quite important, and I've seen customers making that mistake, and I've made that mistake myself as well. I have a customer that has 700,000 assets, all in one schema, which is insanity. But I can understand why, because I've made the same mistake myself. You start very small, you create one schema, and then someone needs something else, and suddenly, you're busy with work, and you just do it without having time to think and plan, and to, build a relational model if you're like a database administrator, and you just do it, and suddenly you end up with, 700,000 assets in one schema. So yeah, when you're trying to, delegate accesses and so on, which you still can, there's a level of granularity, but it's much easier to maintain things when they are like within compartments, basically. So yeah,
I just think it's going to be a very interesting skill to learn, and Atlassian, I guarantee, is going to push us all to adapt assets heavily. I think a lot of Robo's backbone is going to be heavily influenced by assets and what's in there.
Absolutely. If you'd have asked me 5 years ago if I would be managing, database or assets, relational models, and so on, I would say, yeah, absolutely, I will, and I want to do more. If you'd have asked me 5 years ago if I would be building AI agents, I would say, no, what is that? And that's what I'm doing now. I mean, I'm building robo agents. I'm giving workshops and trainings on how to build robo agents. So absolutely, we as Atlassian administrators, we're constantly going to be learning new skills. Especially for us that are consultants, we have to be always on top of the game. When our customers are asking us for stuff, we have to, be ready to show them and to be able to start working on it right away.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Agreed.
So you have prepared you've went above and beyond. Not only are you going to teach us about it, I think you've also prepared a practical demonstration to show what you mean.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, so maybe I'll start with... So
for those of you well, I think it's important, right? Not everybody has the premium version of JSM, so...
Absolutely.
Welcome, people. Maybe give us like a 1-minute primer of what assets are, since we've been spending the last 18 minutes talking about assets.
Yeah, so assets is a database of things, basically. The name assets, we talked, it might not necessarily be the most explanatory name, but it's a database of things. It's particularly useful in service management, because when you have a user complaining that they have a problem on their laptop, you don't want to waste time on asking, but what type of laptop model do you have? And the user might say, well, I don't know, it's a Mac. But is it a M3? Is it M4? What type of screen do you have? It's like, I don't know, it's a Mac. So being able to import that information, if you already have a device management platform, just import that correlated with the users. So when the user say, I have a problem with my computer, it doesn't turn on, you immediately know from the moment you receive the request, right on the issue view, this is the type of computer that the user has, and so on. So in service management, I find it extremely useful. You can now Atlassian offers customer service management. But before that, it's very often that you import your customers as assets, the products that your customers are buying. So when the customers would create a support ticket, you immediately know without having to ask them, without asking them to fill it in the form. So the customer will just say, I have a problem. And you just read the ticket and you know exactly which product the customer is buying. So
we have all their metadata, right? We keep metadata on all of them that we can easily pull up and access, unlike many of our doctor's offices who have to ask us repeatedly for the same information. But I digress.
Yeah, and I have, for example, or I had customers where they had different SLAs depending on different customers. And when you combine JQL and AQL on the same query to set up the SLAs, you can actually... so AQL is the query language for assets. So you can combine. So you can use AQL function in JQL. So that allows you to do a lot of things in Jira. And of course, automation, because assets live on the Atlassian platform. You can use automation to create assets, to update assets, to read assets, to query them, to run AQLs, and then for each of those results of AQLs, do anything with each of the results. So it helps. I've been working with assets for, 5-6 years now, from the time when it was Insight from Mindville until Atlassian bought the product. And yes, where I still find limitations, almost every month. I wish the product would be better, like almost every Atlassian product, but it's getting there.
Atlassian's trying to make their money back from that major outage they had because of Insight.
Oh, wow. Oh, don't get me started. Fortunately, I didn't have any customer affected by it, but it caused, oh, wow.
Ripples.
This was a bad outage.
And you know what else? This is just, again, a little off of what we're talking about. Last week, we were talking about, hey, can Rovo and whiteboards and Confluence create me some diagrams, right? And show relation. Those are more process flow kind of things. But the other thing I love with assets is seeing those relationships and those schematics behind the scenes of how everything is related to each other and those graph presentations. That is so powerful to be able to daisy chain all of your information. So when something happens here, you can trace all of that impact all the way down to all those other different assets.
But you just described the hardest part about assets is figuring out how things are daisy chained.
But again, I don't know that that's art. I agree that there are standard practices associated with how to do that. So it's just finding the right person, somebody like Paulo, right? Somebody out in that community.
How do you know what should be an attribute versus an object type versus a nested object type versus a nested object type versus another schema? That's more art than science.
But I know this might be a controversial opinion, but I don't think
to the Jira Life, Paulo.
I don't think us, Atlassian administrators have to absolutely know everything. I mean, within your organization, you have a database administrator somewhere that you can use and ask for help.
Yeah,
maybe, but we're also expected to know how to use our Atlassian tools because we're the Atlassian experts.
Absolutely. But in the beginning, sorry, Rodney.
You do what you do with everything that you don't know how to do specifically. You have a sit down with that expert. You get basic understanding from them. You're like, okay, I need a database design to manage our laptop inventory. We got our users we're considering. Just sit down with them, work through it, have them help you. You know what buttons to click in what order. They know how things should be put together.
Yeah.
Got everything you need right there.
I'm playing like devil's advocate a little bit. Right? I have like 4 or 5 clients. I'm neck deep in assets nowadays. But the frustration that I have is because it's going to become a platform app and because Confluence and Jira are going to be way more dependent on it in the future, and because it's so paywall today, I think the average Jira admin is going to be at a very serious disadvantage when this goes mainstream. And so you want to start prepping now. This is not making an automation rule. Assets is something that you need to really go look at deeply. You're not going to really just like Google your way through this one.
But you may be able to Rovo your way through it. But on the side, I think this move, making the platform app, is not really to support the people who are the traditional use case, because if they needed it, they already have it. I think it's really meant to support those people that are coming from data center who now have no choice about going to cloud, who have been using assets locally for whatever purpose for software projects and want to keep using it without having to get a full JSM.
But in terms of knowledge, I just wanted to touch something on that Alex was saying. Alex, I had an amazing experience a couple of weeks ago. I was trying to build Rovo agents, and it's like always frustrated that it doesn't work on the first attempt, obviously, so you have to iterate it and improve it and so on, and eventually you get somewhere. Until I got paired with one guy that doesn't know anything about Jira, but he's an absolute expert on AI. I know about Jira, I know a little bit about AI, so the two of us working together, we managed to build an amazing Rovo agent. So sometimes you might just, find that expertise within your organization and pair yourself with someone, and you learn, they'll learn from you, and And best case scenario, which rarely happens because no one wants to do this job, but best case scenario, you will teach someone about assets and you'll have one more administrator to help you out. But reality is that no one really wants to do this job. But
yeah, again, not true. Like somebody was talking last week about somebody like to go put labels on all of the pages on Confluence. And I'm like, yes, there are people out there who are, oh, yes, please let me organize all of these things. That may or may not be me. I want to, Chris had a comment a few minutes back, right? And it's true of so many things, and especially with assets, right? Is where, as terms of where do you get started? It's asking the question like, what do you need and why do you need it? If I don't know if you guys want to scroll back up and find that one, but again, that's what we do. What are you tracking and why? That's the most basic foundational component here of how we build out those assets. Now, I would say, right, Rodney, you were talking about using Rovo, using AI, 1,000%. If you're new into this, have somebody brings that conversation to you about what are you tracking, then go have that conversation maybe a little bit with AI, and AI can absolutely help you set up those schematics and suggest where some of those relationships are. But this is one of those areas I even still, you don't necessarily go in and jump in and go, I'm going to build all of these assets and start typing away, because that's your biggest, easiest way to, do something that you have to undo later. But go do something like with a whiteboard and go draw those schematics and whatnot on your whiteboard before you start building it, and then iterate and improve with it, right? This is not one of those things that I think you jump straight into unless they're very small things. And then you have rules that say, as we grow this is how we grow it.
Yeah,
I want to touch
in a chocolate factory, though. It's too exciting.
I want to touch on the last comment from Chris, because I think that was very important. Deciding what exactly the temptation of tracking everything. So before I go back to assets, I'm going to go back like over a decade when I was working on business intelligence, and management was always asking me for dashboards. We want dashboards. We want these. I want this data. I want to visualize it. And at some point, my rule to stop them was to say, I'll only build dashboards for data that is actionable, meaning data that you can do something to change it or to improve it on. Otherwise, just building dashboards for fun, just so you can look at it, it doesn't really add value. With assets, I had this principle for service management. Now things are changing because assets is becoming a platform app, but for service management, I had customers importing all sorts of things as assets, and then I asked them, do you need this to do service management? For example, importing every single router, every single network switch into an asset. Are people reporting, do you have a form for people to report incidents on network switches? No, we don't. Do you already have a system from Cisco or whatever to see your network switch? Yeah, we have, and it's better than assets. So why are you importing it as assets? So you should only import it if you have a use for it. What I'm about to show, I actually have a use for it, but don't just start importing stuff if you don't have a plan to use it. So yeah.
I want to see it.
Yeah, great. So yeah, I'm just gonna zoom in a little bit. So for the people that are like, watching on their phone or something, but
Yeah, I'm going
yeah.
full screen myself right now.
So this is, when you load assets, this is a demo environment that already has pre-configured schemas. It's hard for me to explain what a schema is, but looking at these examples, you kind of get an idea. These are like, sections, categories, and it allows you to define custom things for them, custom statuses, custom relationships because the same relationships you have between people, like manager and so on, you don't have those relationships between, computers. Computers are not, I'm not a manager of a computer, I'm a user of a computer. So relationships, statuses, and things like that might be different from schema to schema. So it might make sense in the beginning when you're planning. Try to isolate and categorize them.
Paulo, I always introduce schemas at the level, I try to make the correlations between what you do in Jira. So a schema to me is a project.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
As we're talking about those levels. So this is my main container that's going to hold these other things that I'm going to create that are my object types and my attributes, the same way I'm going to create my work types and my fields.
And this is very important to nail it right from the beginning, because changing these later, splitting into different schemas, it might become a problem if you already have, Jira tickets linked to them. So, and you want to preserve that history. So it's very important to have a considerable amount of planning, like how this can scale in the future, because it's a common mistake that I myself do it, because sometimes I don't have the correct context of the customer. I don't know the direction where they're trying to go in the future. And then I end up with one schema that contains everything, and then just hard to split it afterwards. So what I've done is that I've created a schema called Atlassian. Just gonna jump right into it, where I import all my users. So this is an actual real example from a real customer of mine, but I anonymize all the data. So you'll see weird auto-generated names of Jira spaces, Confluence spaces, users, randomized IDs. This is not a real account ID and so on, but it's just for the sake of demonstrating it. So here, for example, I import this user. I import the email address, the account ID, whether the account is active or not, if it is Atlassian Guard billable, which groups does the user belongs to, discover products. So through org-admin, I discover that this user is a user on other Atlassian sites and what products they are using. The last time that the user was active in our main Jira instance, the last time the user was active in our main Confluence instance, a link to manage the user profile if I want to click on it and immediately open the user profile on org-admin. And I have a few more attributes, but I didn't manage to anonymize them, so I'm not going to show. But yeah, so here we get, the user as an object. I can take this one because it doesn't have that sensitive data on it. So you can see here the object. So if I zoom out a little bit, you can also see the relationships here. So this user is a user of these discover products, and it's a member of these 4 groups. I do the same with groups as well. So I import the groups and the user count. I also import the group IDs and all sorts of things. You can add and remove columns on a review. I also import Jira spaces. So this is an old, old schema that I have. So I import project name, project key. Something that might be interesting sometimes when you're solving problems with users is nice to have in hand previous project keys as well, because you might change the project key. So you get the whole history here. So in this case, these project keys never change, so all project keys is the same. Otherwise, it will be comma separated list. Then we get the project lead, if there are any admin projects, admin groups, category, project style, project type, simplified, and so on. So if it's if it's using simplified workflow, the issue count. So it's also nice to identify, projects that, someone requested to create a project, you created it, and after 3 years, it only has 5 issues in there, work items. The last activity, the URL, and so on. So yeah. And then we add the same for Confluence Spaces. Very similar, the same as Jira. Different attributes though. Here we have the last page edit date. And then discover products. This is, for security and people that hate shadow IT, this is gold because it really allows you to see where your users have access to. We actually use this to send a monthly reminder to those users to say, hey, you have access to those Jira sites, these Confluence sites, but you're not allowed to store company data there. So just reminding you, every month we send them a reminder. I think it's actually every 3 months or something like that. And we do this with automation. We create automation rules that identify the users that have access to those sites and send them an email.
And that's what I was just going to say, Paulo, right? Because I can imagine people at this point going, I can get access to all of that information. I already have screens I can go to tell me all of that. But I think the key here is that when you put it into assets, into a database, now it's much easier to go out and query that database than it would be to write a bunch of webhooks, let's say, in an automation to go collect data and go do things. Now we have that kind of at a glance. We can build report or even literal reports off that, etc.
Oh, absolutely. But if you want to go to org admin and get list of all your users sorted by last activity date in Jira, you can't. You have to manually open every single profile to see that information. So this gives you a view like in one go, and you can sort it, you can filter it, you can do all sorts of filters. I can go, for example, Jira last active within the last 4 weeks, and then update filter. So I know that within the last 4 weeks, I had 3,000 users using it. So this type of information you cannot get on org admin. So this allows you for, if you are like, very budget oriented and you have a strict amount of licenses, this is gold because it allows you to like, okay, we grew, we have now more users than licenses, but we also identify 1,000 users that have not used Jira in the past year. So, okay, let's kick them out. And if they need access again, they will ask.
Yes.
Obviously, in the dream scenario, everyone will use Jira every day, but, reality is different. So, yeah.
And Confluence.
Of course. So, yeah, and the nice, cool view that I really enjoy is when you're looking at this user and you have user is a member of these and these discover products. Actually, you know what? Let me actually take a Jira space and show you, for example, this project lead. So this user is a project lead in 6 Jira spaces, administrator in 2 of them. And you can do this, which I think is quite nice, is actually, have a complete diagram of what is connected to that user. And you can control the diagram. And you can just say, okay, I want to see only places where this user is project lead. And these are the 6 projects. You can, for example, go further on reference depth. If you go too far, this might actually crash. I think it will crash already, because then it will start like building the chart of everything. So yeah, then you see that there's also project leads, administrators also for these projects. So yeah, this project is administered by this user, but also this user. So it gives you that nice bird's eye view. Of course, this is more obvious for service management. When you talk about, servers and so on, but not necessarily just physical assets, but, software licenses, but also buildings and things like that. I've heard of customers even having network power grid using assets. So it's pretty cool. And being able to use, data that we as administrators, we know pretty well, being able to import that as assets unlocks a lot of opportunities.
I have to throw out there again, if anybody didn't watch last week with Robert Heen, I'm just going to keep referencing that. So it turns out our shows do build on each other a little bit. But he was mentioning that one of his early jobs was to literally walk around like some stockyards or something like that and take pictures of where there were network connections. I might be misquoting that a bit, but conceptually, right? He was going out there collecting data so that when something went down, somebody knew where to find it. And this is well before we were living in the land of assets. So imagine if he would have, and he was putting that on Confluence, which was fantastic. But now imagine the ability to take that and put that in a more structured way like this, so that something happens and then, you go see those relationships. Hey, this, particular area went down. What are the buildings that's impacting? What things could we be expecting? And then putting in that warehouse, let's say, that are now going to be impacted by that. We have all of that insight thanks to something like assets when set up.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is, I know so many organizations where unfortunately offboarding is not the perfect process. And this allows you that if you know that this user is leaving the organization or moving to a different department or something, it gives you an overview of things there where the user should be replaced. And now with AI, I have situations where we have millions of Confluence pages, thousands and thousands of Confluence spaces, and we want to start cleaning up, and we don't know where to start. And the first thing is, let's start and contact the space owners. But the space owners are not even working on the organization anymore. And then you start narrowing down to administrators. And then people are like, I don't know why I'm an administrator on that space. So what we have done is that we built an automation that if the space owner is not an active account anymore, it will send an email to all the administrators and asking them to nominate a new space owner. We track that for the ones where the administrators are also not responding. We, as Confluence administrators, we fix those manually, but it does save a lot of time for us, because then once you have a complete list of all space owners that is currently active, then you can use that to contact them and say, hey, I noticed that your space didn't have any activity in the past 2 years. Is this space still relevant? Can we archive it? Or even better, can we delete it? When you're thinking about Jira, for example, how many workflows, schemes, screens, custom fields, and so on do you have that you're not sure if they're being used or not? And it's a pain to do that cleanup. Well, deleting the projects is a better way to clean up, because then you can liberate those workflow schemes and all those statuses that were only in use by that project that is not relevant anymore. Then yes.
And with all the love in the world to our marketplace app partners, some organizations, right, can't dive into those apps that might provide something like this. And then this gives them a way to harness some of that same power because they can build it themselves via assets. And then as you're talking about offboarding, I'm thinking about in HR projects where journeys are available, right? And those journeys are set up a lot to onboard and offboard. And so now you've just got all that power that you can use with those automations to go find a lot more of that information and the steps that you need to take in those areas that need to be touched.
Sarah,
I'm digging this, people.
Hobby.
What's that?
You need to pick up a hobby.
No.
He does have one. Assets.
The fact that this is exciting for you.
But there's one thing that I have to like a little bit of reality check. Setting this up in the beginning, I've done this before Data Manager was a thing, so it is a real pain understanding the API documentation on how to import this, because only recently Cloud has scheduled imports. So what it means, me without scheduled imports, what I do is that I remotely upload my assets every night. So now you have two things. You have scheduled imports that was literally just launched a couple of weeks ago in assets, and you have Data Manager. So this is relatively easier now. I know that Data Manager is also a steep learning curve. But with Data Manager, you can have tech-savvy developer that can help you out building a script to extract that information from the REST APIs, drop it into a CSV, use the CSV adapter from Data Manager, and import it. And schedule it to be imported every night, for example. These I actually import twice per day, just to make sure we have. It doesn't really consume that much resources to get this information. So yeah, twice per day, and you could do it every hour even. But yeah,
you're gonna find somebody in an organization who really does enjoy this, who puts a smile on their face thinking about these things, right? So this is the point, that you don't, as an admin, right? It doesn't have to all fall on you. I guarantee. And there's going to be somebody. I've worked in very, very small companies, and I've been that person who's like, yeah, let me add that database, right? Let me see what I can do with it. And that was before I knew enough about databases, and I was probably really, really dangerous with it. But yeah, there's always going to be that person out there who's going to see the potential and really help counsel you and walk you through. Because I find linked objects, right, to the point of how do I create these relationships, right? Do I create, should something be an object? Should we instead use it as a reference field, right, and link over to that and display that? Those can be tricky. And I've seen organizations do it in a circular way because they don't necessarily know what they do. They have links going in both directions. And so that's one of the things that folks you either learn it because somebody has walked you through it, or you've done it and you realized, oh, this is a problem. It's not doing exactly what I want it to do. So yeah, we're seeing the, showing my age here, thinking about older cooking shows, and we're seeing the pie coming out of the oven, right? And it's beautiful with this crust and flaky and brown, and we can't wait to try a bite of the apples inside. But we also know that behind the scenes, somebody was back there chopping those apples, making that dough. The dough had to rest for hours on end, to come up with this pie. So there's absolutely work that goes into this, but man, when you get it right, it's delicious.
Absolutely, Sarah. And I mean, also another comparison to for people that trying to understand how to use assets and what assets is. If you ever found yourself in Excel, I mean, okay, it's not a very good comparison because I do hate Excel, but okay, if you find yourself...
Let's not piss anybody off.
Company there.
Remind me, what is the Microsoft databases? What were those?
Access.
Yes.
Access. Yeah. That was my first foray.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but imagine yourself that you are in Excel and you have, for example, 3 tabs, and you might find sometimes in a complex scenario that you have, a formula that gets data from one tab into another. Basically, your columns are attributes, your tabs are objects, and you're establishing relationships between them, basically.
Yes. Who loves a good VLOOKUp? Me.
That's how I train, or when
Exactly.
I teach how to use assets, I pull out Excel and I'm like, here's your schema, here's your object types, here's your objects, here's your attributes.
And it actually, like, designing the schemas and the objects and attributes might actually start in Excel. Like, the administrators might just send you an Excel file of all their assets, and you start from there. And yeah, so unfortunately, it's actually where it starts most of the times.
I will still say every admin is a database administrator. They just don't know it.
Yeah.
And I think the thing to remember here is this can be iterative. You don't have to have the final product right away.
Absolutely.
I keep thinking about the quote, do not let perfect be the enemy of done. Just get something, even if it's terrible, it's something, it's a starting point that you could then iterate off of.
Until you bites you in the butt. Because somebody ran with it and thought that was it, and
Alex, how many things have you done in Jira, like throughout the years, that ended up biting you in the butt?
That's what I was going to say. Every great workflow I've ever created was, well, let's just get this just enough.
Yeah.
And see how it goes.
I'll temper that with a little bit of... I'll temper that with a little bit of another saying that there's nothing more permanent in IT than a temporary solution.
I love that. Yes.
Just a Band-Aid.
I hear it very often, like, if it works, don't touch it.
Right? It suffices, to say the least.
Yeah, the amount of hacks that I put together over my career that are still holding up a system, it's scary.
There's shoestrings, right? No, I love this. Are you gonna share all your schemas? No, I'm teasing.
Well,
I know.
the
Where's the blog post on this stuff? Like, how do I go reproduce this?
the thing that would be worth sharing, and I've been thinking about open sourcing it, but I just don't have the time, is the script that actually imports this every night. So that is it's actually reusable. I will just have to like remove some specific logic that I have there.
Agent that will do this for you.
Yeah. Actually, yes. I mean, with RoboDev, this should be a no-brainer. Actually, I had to make changes recently, and I just used Visual Studio Code, GitHub Copilot with a Forge MCP server. Even though I'm not building a Forge app, the MCP server from Forge is really good at preventing coding agents from hallucinating when it comes to the APIs. Because if you just go to...
Yet?
Sorry?
Can it order pizza yet?
Not yet, but it can, for example, like, so many times that I go into ChatGPT and start suggesting, API endpoints that have been deprecated or things like that. So the Forge MCP is pretty good at helping the agents on like making sure that they are on track and don't hallucinate. But ordering pizzas from Copilot, well, you can. Some places have APIs, but we're not there yet.
Yes. So you mentioned data. Oh, go ahead. Do you want to talk about pizzas more, Alex?
One more, last one. My goal is to deliver a pizza at Team 26. So I want Mike to stand on that stage and order a pizza and have somebody deliver.
Be a robo.
Yeah, be a robo.
And do you want to be the one delivering said pizza on stage?
I'm literally gonna show up on Wednesday morning with the pizza in my backpack, and I'm just gonna take it up.
But actually, Alex, you can. I have seen like because you can build a custom Forge agent for Rovo that calls an API for, I don't know what you guys use in US, like Deliveroo, DoorDash, whatever. So yeah, and you can actually build a Rovo agent.
Yeah, Sean and I, not using Forge, but just using, I don't even, Python, I suppose. I don't even know what we were using. But we built an app, and it was able to actually take the order, get the address, the right store, the right item ID, the right price, everything. And all I needed to do was put a credit card, and it was good to go. But we stopped at the credit card because the pizza was going to be delivered in Washington, D.C., and it was going to take us a while to get there.
I mean, I've seen Domino's everywhere at Team, like presenting and things like that. It's about time that they show Rovo in action delivering pizzas. So
Exactly.
I think it'd be the best publicity. And Atlassian always puts like a big promo, like they've used Rivian and stuff. Like, what better showcase than to put Domino's Pizza and Atlassian with the ultimate partnership?
And could the delivery guy drive the F1 car?
I know, right?
Now then I think we're onto something, right? And Bob, I like your little pun to be saucy.
There's nothing wrong with pineapple on a pizza, for the record.
Wait, what?
Oh no!
I'm sorry. I'm like English. English is not my first language, so you might have to repeat that. I wasn't really sure if I heard correctly.
There's nothing wrong with putting pineapple on a pizza.
Okay, what's the button to leave this? I'm sorry, I'm new to this streaming platform, so I don't really.
The little red one down at the bottom.
Not the lead one, though. The screen one.
Oh,
No, the only other thing I was going to ask real quick was you mentioned data manager. For those folks who might be watching this who are unfamiliar with assets, are going to be unfamiliar with data manager at a high level. What's that do for you?
Yeah, so that's actually, it's something that stands between your assets and Atlassian assets. It's basically something that stays in between. And that's actually a good thing because you might think, okay, I'm adding an extra level of complexity, but you're adding a new process that you wish you'd had before, which is the cleansing and reconciliation, which before was extremely difficult to do without data manager. So you're able to, you find your, let's talk about laptops, for example. You'll find the laptops in the, maybe Intune if you use Microsoft, but you also find them on the antivirus licenses. You also find it on, receipts from the vendors from when you bought them and so on. And you want to ideally import all these data sources and reconcile them, like merging them together, and also excluding the ones that are not relevant. Like, do you want to import laptops that have not been in use and have been returned to the vendor from 5 years ago? Possibly not, because remember that there's still consumption-based pricing for assets, so you don't really want to import assets that you're not planning to use. So Data Manager really helps on that and makes things easier. Yes, the learning curve is a bit steep. The training, in my opinion, is not there yet, but I believe it's something that's been worked on. But there's a ton of documentation at least. So after you set up the first time, then you realize that it's not that difficult. But setting it up the first time, it's gonna be quite a steep learning curve.
Yeah. So with Data Manager, right, what's nice is, just the same way you've set up the assets that you are sharing, right, to govern, it almost helps you govern your assets in a little bit of a way, right? Because then you can go find those things that shouldn't be there anymore. So that's awesome about that in between part. And then another key thing I think with these databases is, to your point as well, right? You only want one of whatever that thing is. You don't want multiples. And that's another mistake that I've seen, right? Because that we get kind of fractured sometimes, where one team comes up and is like, this is the assets that I need. And so all of those things get imported. And another team that might be, having they share something, but they have their own now import over here that has the exact same thing. And you don't want two of the exact same thing there. Y'all don't want two Sarahs out there. You want one Sarah. So Data Manager, right, can help you make sure, oh, hey, I see two Sarahs out there. Let's make sure there's just one of those.
What would your husband say,
Then
Sarah?
I have the right relationships with all of those other things I have out there.
What would your husband say? Would he want two Sarahs?
No, literally nobody on this planet. Nobody. It would be a bad thing. But the last thing I was going to say, you were talking about the training right now that's out there about Data Manager. It was definitely sort of launched, and then we'll throw all our support by that. So I was thinking that probably, I know Alex has been really interested in doing a lot more training. So I think Alex was going to sign up to deliver Data Manager training, right, for Atlassian?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I've learned to love assets. I think it's going to be a very powerful feature. I just feel for every Jira admin out there.
That sympathy and empathy is good.
It's a skill. It's not that easy, especially
it's something you gotta work on. Yeah.
But building the assets is one part. Then using it in the field and knowing the special commands, so that one field, when you make a selection from one field of an asset, then it calls another. Like the next field has a subset of the data now AQL'd by the previous field. Like that stuff just gets hairy, and like there's no documentation out there.
Yeah, Jimmy Wickman did it. Yimmy Wickman. Go find him. He does
Yimmy did it.
Brilliant video on that I reference
absolutely.
constantly.
And I love Yimmy for it, but I was talking about Atlassian.
But that's what the community is for, right?
And I really enjoyed the certifications as well. Even though there's still improvements to be made, and Atlassian is doing a lot of improvements with the certifications program. But I think it's something. I'm not very motivated to learn new things if I don't have a reward for it, or a project with a customer or a reward from learning something. I'm not gonna. Otherwise, I just sit on the couch and watch YouTube. That's what I do. So having that motivation that I was like, okay, I'm gonna pass this to be certified, so I'm gonna be forced to learn it. I was refusing to learn Loom for a while until Atlassian launched this Atlassian certified associate. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take 2 evenings and try Loom, learn it, and then pass the certification. So then, because then I have that objective. Yeah.
Well, and then
like
what's
me,
nice,
just
though,
show up to a team conference and take 6 ACAs.
exactly. You could do that too. But yeah, like with the ACAs, I am waiting. I don't know if there's plans to do one specific for assets, especially as it becomes a platform app. I'm anticipating
I can see it
one
becoming an ACH.
An ACH? It's
Yeah,
not
it
an
might be.
ache. It won't be an ache.
I think it'll be an ACH.
But what's nice though is when they produce those ACAs, then you get the training programs behind them, right? Because they don't just go,
Yeah.
"Hey, come take this
Exactly.
test." They go,
Exactly.
"Here, we're going to do what we can to help you pass the test." So building all of that together is definitely beneficial. Yeah, because I do too. I want to go get them all.
Gotta catch them all.
Don't
And
put us
in terms, I
copyright
mean,
strike.
there's
Rodney, what
also a
happened to
lot
your
of
internet?
Shh, Alex.
Sorry.
Also, I mean, there's a ton of webinars. I think I lost count of how many webinars I had with like Sylvia Davis from Atlassian. She does a lot about Assets Data Manager, so there's a lot of content out there as well. But it's just like I need that motivation. I need like someone where introducing data managers is going to be impactful for them. Then it was the right motivation for me to like go deep into it. But yeah.
Cool. Well,
All
thanks
right.
for being here,
Well,
Paulo.
Paulo. Yep.
Thank you,
Alex
guys.
beat me to it. Thank you. 2 quick announcements. First off, next Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern, that'd be about 8 a.m. Pacific, we are actually doing, let me get this pulled up. Of course, it has me do 5,000 screens for it. We are doing
Pick the right one.
Here we go. An AMA with the Ways of Working group. This one was literally published just as the show started. So this is a
RSVP.
brand new session. It's with the RSVP, please. It's with the usual suspects. Link has just been put in the comments. We'll also make sure it gets put in the chat. And aside from that, next week, Alex, who do we have coming next week?
Josh Costella.
Yes, he was paying attention
And-
yesterday.
And if any of you guys went to the Atlassian Builder Summit and walked away from that presentation, you definitely going to want to come for an encore.
Yeah,
Josh
he
is
gave
probably one of
an
my
amazing
favorite
keynote.
administrators right now in the ecosystem.
Mhm. Josh G, you have some work
Catching
to
up to do. Josh,
Yep.
well, I don't know the order of operations. I think it was Matt Thor goes up there, does one of the greatest presentations of ever. And then Josh G walks on stage and is like, I was 2 years old when Jira came out, and like immediately loses the room with a bunch of boos. after Matt Thor just took everybody through a 25-year journey of Atlassian. And Josh is like, I was 2.
Well, that was Just G. Just C will have a different perspective.
Josh C had a really good presentation. It was really, really good.
I'm excited.
Mhm.
Which seems to be my natural
All
state.
right,
Everything's exciting.
a little bit. But everyone,
All right,
thank
Rodney.
you for watching today. Yep. And as we always say, we didn't choose the Jira Life. Jira Life chose us.
Thank you for listening to the Jira Life. Our hosts are Alex, Dr. Jira Ortiz, Rodney, the Jira guy Nissen, and Sarah, #IBelieveSarah, Wright. Our producers are Robert King Bob Wen and Lina Ortiz. You can catch us as we record this podcast live every Thursday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on YouTube at The Jira Life. Be sure to join us and the other Jiramigos of the Peanut Gallery each week to ask questions, add your comments, and tell us what you're up to. If you can't join us live, you can still catch the replay on YouTube. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell while you're watching. You can also find us as a podcast on Apple iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you think this podcast deserves a rating, it would be much appreciated, as it will help others discover the Jira Life. Because we didn't choose the Jira Life. The Jira Life chose us. Thank you to Revise for backing us up and making the Jira Life possible.